So I've tried a lot of things that claim to make life easier, but Nick's leak-proof period underwear is one of the only brands that truly delivers. I no longer wear clunky pads or toxic tampons, and the defining moment for me was when I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, living in fear that my period would come early. And then I remembered I brought my trusty Nick's period underwear, and that fear completely subsided. There's no way I could have been changing pads and tampons at 19,000 feet. So Nick's KNIX has completely changed how I feel about my period. Their leak-proof technology looks, feels, and washes like normal undies, but have a range of absorbencies for your lightest to heaviest days. Up to 6 super tampons, so you are totally covered. Plus, Nick's has patented bonded edges to prevent side leaks. And with buttery soft, stretchy fabric in cuts like thong, bikini, boy short, high rise, and more, you'll find just the right fit. So head to Knix.com and you'll see why I love Knix. Don't forget to use code DATEABLE for 20% off your order. Get leak-proof undies, amazing bras, and more. That's KNIX.com, code DATEABLE, Knix.com. Many of you have heard us talk about Hormone Harmony by Happy Mammoth, the supplement that helps women maintain optimal hormone levels, with over 50,000 glowing reviews from women worldwide and 98% saying they recommend it to friends and family. Now you can take those results even further by pairing it with their prebiotic collagen protein, which helps restore gut lining integrity, promoting overall hormone levels. Now, I've struggled with occasional digestive issues, and since taking the prebiotic collagen protein, I've noticed a real lift in my energy and overall well-being. Happy Mammoth is dedicated to making women's lives easier. And that means using only science-backed ingredients that have been proven to work for women. They make no compromise when it comes to quality, and it shows. Right now, you can try prebiotic collagen protein and Hormone Harmony risk-free and get 15% off your entire first order with the code DATEABLE at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use the code DATEABLE for 15% off today. Hi, I'm Yui Shu.
And I'm Julie Kraftchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to Dateable. Hello, friends.
Welcome back to another episode of Dateable.
Are we ready to talk about psychology today? We always love the topic of anything related to psychology because I think you and I are really fascinated by it in general, and our audiences too.
And one topic that we haven't hit on yet that we want to talk about is emotional labor, mental load, and all of these unseen aspects of dating and relationship, and what happens when one person carries it, and how does that imbalance affect the overall relationship?
And it's not always in relationships either. You can have emotional labor that you put out in dating as well. And so we'll talk about some of that in terms of in dating and in relationships. But first, let's figure out what emotional labor is, because this term has been thrown around, and I don't think we formally identified and defined what it is.
No. And, I feel like even doing research for this episode, it was clear the difference between mental load and emotional labor. And I feel like they get used very interchangeably. So the definition that we found is emotional labor is the effort of managing your feelings or the way you express them in order to meet the expectations of a role, relationship, or situation.
And a lot of the time, emotional labor is invisible effort and comes with managing your feelings and your partner's feelings, the other person's feelings, all for the purpose of maintaining harmony. And I never really thought about this in this way before, especially in early dating. There's so many things that we say, oh, you ignore up front because you don't want to rock the boat. That's actually about maintaining harmony. And we are the ones really putting in the emotional load and the emotional labor to just keep everything peaceful.
Yeah. And this term I feel like has gotten a lot of traction in recent years, but I was surprised that It dated all the way back to 1983,
Yes.
and it was first introduced by the sociologist Arlie Hochschild in her 1983 book, The Managed Heart. And she used it to describe jobs where workers were expected to regulate their emotions as part of their work. So, like, for example, a flight attendant, you have to warmly smile to passengers, even if you don't feel happy.
I was so fortunate enough to actually take classes from Professor Hochschild when I was at Berkeley before she retired in 2003. And I did not know she wrote this book. So I'm relearning all of her work. What she also talks about is how this emotional labor is usually unpaid
Yeah.
and it's undervalued, but it is expected. So as a flight attendant, you're expected to be smiley, happy, friendly, and warm, but you're not paid for your smile. And nobody's like, oh my gosh, she's amazing because she's smiling, because it's part of your expectations of work.
Right. And I think about dating is you have to kind of go in with that happy face, even if you've had a shit day at work. And again, it's like the expectation. It's one of those things like people don't, I mean, I guess people notice if you're warm and friendly. I don't want to say that no one notices, but I feel like people might notice more if you were the opposite.
Yes. And it's different than emotional support. Emotional labor is the effort you're putting out. Emotional support is how you're supporting your partner, supporting someone else through it. The emotional labor is actually voluntary. We're doing it to ourselves. and then we feel tired because nobody's asking us to put in this labor, but we're putting it out there and it is actually very draining.
So is it voluntary though? Because I feel like in order to have a relationship, you need to do it. Like some examples, for instance, listening to others, showing empathy, resolving conflicts. Like if you just don't do it, it's really hard to maintain a relationship. Or we get into these situations where only one person is doing it and then it's an unhappy relationship. So I don't know if it's voluntary. I get what you're saying, like you control what you do, but I feel like to maintain a position in society, you kind of need to exude some of it.
I think it's voluntary because some people don't do it. I think there are some relationships. I've seen many marriages where it's unequal because one person just volunteers to do the emotional labor and the other one does not. So I do think there is some self-activation in all of this. And what we'll go through in this episode also is what is the emotional labor that you can not do?
Right.
Because it's probably not serving your relationship, or how you can divvy up that labor amongst you and the other person. So one example that is actually emotional labor that I thought was interesting is deciphering what a text message means. That's emotional labor.
Yeah.
And it's in early dating when you're like, oh, what does he mean when he said this? You are expending that energy trying to figure out what it means when you could just text and say, what did you mean when you said this?
That's a really good point. And we're going to dive into more examples. Like some of this might be self-induced and not needed, actually not helpful at all to maintain a relationship, like deciphering text messages, where other parts, like you said, yeah, not all married couples do it. And yeah, true. You have a choice. You never have to do anything, but some of it might actually hurt your relationship if you don't do it, where other parts might actually help your relationship if you don't do it.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about that emotional labor.
Well, I want to talk before actually, though, what the difference of load is, because I feel like for me, this was something I didn't really see the difference until diving in a little more. So the definition for emotional load is the mental responsibility of anticipating, tracking, and carrying the emotional needs of the relationship. And it's the cognitive effort and planning involved in managing like household tasks, responsibilities, and family life. Like you think of it as the person that's the one scheduling the appointments, organizing the finances, planning meals, coordinating activities, like remembering the birthdays and anniversaries. So it's more
the practicalities of the relationship.
I think that's a good way to decide between the two. It's like labor is the act of doing, where load is the ongoing responsibility.
Okay. I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more. I'm sure everyone's trying to digest this too. The load is what you are doing in the background, like what you're constantly having to do to upkeep the relationship.
I think it's different. I think the labor is the act of
Okay.
doing, but the load is
Okay.
like the feeling that you have to do all this stuff. At least that's
Oh, the
how I'm
feeling.
interpreting. It's like this internal burden of remembering, monitoring, and planning around. I mean, these two get interchanged all the time. And I think for due reason, it's a little confusing between the two. But I did want to like point out kind of some of the technicalities and differences.
Okay.
Here's an example.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Give an example.
The load is the constant awareness. I need to make sure they feel cared for. And the labor is the action you take because of the awareness. Sending the text, organizing the night out, smoothing things over.
So the load is what creates the labor then? Like you have
I
to have
think that's
emotional
right.
load
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
in order to create the labor. Okay.
And the labor is the hidden work. Yeah. Of maintaining harmony and all this stuff. Yes.
So if we're scheduling appointments, organizing finances, that's actually the labor. But the
Mhm.
load is I have to schedule appointments. I have to organize all the finances in this household. That's a lot of emotional load on me.
Yeah. And I think like for
Okay.
this conversation, we can look at them collectively because they do
Mhm.
tie in together, but just I don't know. I think they get interchanged a lot.
Yeah, I see this in relationships where one person's keeping track of all the anniversaries,
Mhm.
all the birthdays. My mom still remembers my dad's brother's
Yeah.
birthday because my dad does never remember. So my mom's like, hey, don't forget to text your brother. It's his birthday. That's the emotional load is her having to remember my uncle's birthday.
Yeah.
And then the labor is telling my dad to text my uncle because he'll never do it if she doesn't.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those things that I have this example that I've pulled out on this podcast before where my partner and I did this Russian River floating trip. And I'm the one like coordinating all of the group dynamics, like making sure everyone gets there and, when people are texting, like when they're like 5 minutes out or whatever it is. And, he was blowing up the float and he thought like I'm just like on my phone doing nothing. And he's like, can you help with the float? And I'm like, I can, but I'm like trying to like do this too. And he's like, oh, I didn't realize. It's not like he didn't realize like plans needed to be made. I think he didn't realize like the load and labor that went into it to like making it a reality. So it was that like kind of aha moment, like, oh, you aren't just like fussing around on your phone doing nothing while I'm doing this physical labor of blowing up a float. We're just doing different types of labor. And that I think has actually helped in different dynamics because while I don't think one person should carry all of it, there are different strengths that both partners bring. And sometimes like I am the better planner of social events. And that's okay. I'm happy to lean into that. And I would much prefer him to blow up that damn float, right?
But in both of those examples, or in that example, and I want people to hear the distinction between what you were doing versus what he was doing. What he was doing was very visible.
Yes.
What you were doing was invisible. And that is where the conundrum lies in the emotional labor, is that a lot of the emotional labor is done in silence. It's not visible to both parties. So you can't fault the other person for not taking on that labor because they never saw it in the first place. And I would even argue some people don't see what all of the emotional labor that is necessary in a relationship. So that's why making the invisible visible is probably the first step.
And I think that's why this gets so much, traction because like if one partner just like wasn't doing dishes ever, it's very tangible. And then, with this, it doesn't feel like, it feels like resentment can build on both parties. Like, for example, the person that's doing the physical stuff that's tangible, they're like, well, I'm doing all this stuff and they're not really carrying their weight. And then you as the person doing the invisible work is like, well, I'm doing all this and they don't recognize it and see it at all. So I can see why it's so problematic.
And sometimes I actually just thought about this. You could be doing labor that's not emotional, that's without the emotional load, but you still think you're contributing to that relationship. Like, for example, I'll use my parents again. My dad will be in the yard doing yard work that my mom set out for him to do.
Mm-hmm.
To him, he's putting in labor into the relationship. He did not have to think about it, plan for it, or schedule it.
Right.
He just did it. For her, my mom's still all week thinking about the yard work that needs to be done, scheduling the gardener, what my dad has to fix before the gardener gets there.
Right.
So when my dad finishes his work, he's like, see, I did my part. I contributed to this relationship. And she's like, you have no idea. I've been planning for months for this.
Right. Right. And this definitely shows up in dating. I know that we gave the example about text messages, but in like just showing up positively. And there's just so many countless examples in dating and relationships. And we want to dive into all of that so we can really like start to see how does this appear? And then also what are some red flags, green flags to look at when you're starting to date someone of can they carry this load with you or be appreciative of the load? And then also if they're not, that doesn't mean that it's like a deal breaker and it's done. I think a lot of times, especially in hetero dynamics, like I'm not trying to be too gendered here, but I think women end up being the ones to take on a lot of emotional load because it's something that is more innate to us that we grew up with, like having more emotional conversations and, you know, awareness than a lot of men in our lives. And again, not an excuse for men, but I do think, and I've seen this with my partner, if you become aware, you can learn. So it's not like an all or nothing necessarily either.
And it is definitely studied, researched, and proven that women take on more emotional labor.
Yeah.
So it's not just an observation. There's tons of research papers out there. And I have learned from my lesbian friends, because I have this question a lot, like who bears most of the emotional labor? And they've all told me that in any relationship dynamic, there's always one person who will do more of the emotional labor because they're more natural than the other person. So that person has to learn how to delegate. Otherwise, they will become resentful.
That's a good point, though. It's not always, you know, like it is, yes, there are studies backing it up, but when we say, like, they could be just like the traits of the person as well.
But in hetero relationships, it is 100% of the time the woman takes on more of the emotional labor.
Well, I think getting to 50-50 is hard with everyone. So,
oh, yeah. It's kind of impossible.
Well, before we go into this, of course, shameless plug, go get our book, How to Be Dateable. If you want to date better, smarter, you know, at more ease. Yue, you met someone that got our book. You were so excited about this.
Shout out to Lamb. I was out to dinner and a very nice man came up and tapped me on the shoulder and was carrying her book without the cover. So I didn't even recognize it. And he's like, are you one of the authors of this book? I just got it 2 days ago. Would you mind signing it?
Oh my God.
And I was like, did I write this one? I'm not sure, but I looked at it again. I was like, oh, yeah. This is How to Be Dateable. This is our book. It's so weird. I associate it so much with our teal color. I didn't even recognize it. But yes, shout out to Lamb. And Lamb's like, this must be a sign. I just picked up the book and I run into one of the authors. This is a sign. And I was like, yeah, this is a sign. This is going to be your most dateable year yet.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Like, what are the odds of buying a book and then literally running it to one of the authors, like right after, carrying it around? Impossible.
Yes, while you still have the book in your hand.
That's wild. I do take off the covers quite a lot, though, so I get it, because you don't want to like ruin the cover if you're like,
oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. So I always do that. And then I'm like, what? I always have that like moment of like, what book is this again? Because they all kind of look the same. But yeah, it's to preserve the cover because it will get ruined if you're like having it in your bag and stuff. And
where do you put the cover?
I just keep it at home. And then like when I'm done with it, I'll put it back on and put it on my bookshelf. That's how I preserve this beautiful bookshelf.
I need to know if other people do this because my first thought was he didn't want to be seen walking around with a book called How to Be Dateable.
No, he just wants to preserve the beautiful cover
that Julie
did. It
could
be both. It could be both, but I love
the cover
this.
could be framed.
Yeah, I love this. I think that's such good dating energy, and you really made Yue's night because she immediately texted me after.
I was so excited. So happy.
And like we said, keep the reviews coming, DM us. You know, we really feel like I'm also going to put this shout out too of like anyone that's in this state. We had a DM the other day of someone that's in a relationship, but kind of questioning like, is this the right person for me? And I really was like, I really think you need chapter 6, gaining clarity.
Yeah.
And the only 7 things that matter. And I think, like how to be dateable. Obviously, if you're dating, it's perfect for you. The book title says it all. But I really believe this extends beyond just like initial dating into like, am I with the right person? Am I on the right track? All of that. So whatever stage you're in, definitely pick up the book. And I think it could be really beneficial in this like kind of early dating or early relationship stage, first year-ish,
Yes.
year to 2 years of a relationship.
Or early breakup stage.
Both, yes.
It's perfect for that.
Anytime you need clarity, it's perfect. Okay, cool. Well, before we get into more clarity on emotional labor, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors.
Did you know that 38% of adults who have ever used a dating site or app report receiving unwanted sexually explicit messages or images? That's why we're so excited that the dating app Highly just introduced a new feature called Consent Guard that reduces unsolicited sexual behavior and starts a conversation about digital sexual consent. Because maybe you don't want to get a nude sent to you in the middle of your workday, but you are down for some sexy banter once you're home and you've been chatting for a bit. When the person you're chatting with sends a sexualized image or text, Highly sends you a notification, and you can decide to accept or deny the message. The power is in your hands. Launched in 2017, Highly encourages everyone to date as you are. Finally, an app that promotes authenticity, self-acceptance, open-mindedness, and inclusivity. No wonder Highly, short for Hey, I Like You, has become one of the top dating apps in U.S. app stores, with over 39 million downloads worldwide. If you want safer dating, download Highly from the App Store or Google Play, or check out Highly.com. That's spelled Hily.com. Date as you are, safely with Highly.
So, how are some ways that emotional labor and load and all of it show up in relationships and dating?
One way that is so draining I can think of is managing the tone of the dynamic. I just remember in those like first couple dates,
Oh God, yeah.
how tired I would be after coming home from a date because I realized I had to put on this happy face. I had to be interesting. I had to be interested. I had to maintain curiosity, yet be entertaining and balancing the right tone and make sure there were no awkward silences and fill in the silence if there was. It was truly like giving a TED Talk on a first date and feeling the pressures of doing that.
I think this is an example where it could backfire too. Because
Yes.
I feel like, yes, you don't want to show up to a date as like a total Debbie Downer. If something bad happened, maybe it's just worth canceling the date, to be honest, instead of going and like putting up this like front to like have this like mental
performance.
load on you. And I think too, when it doesn't feel authentic, like it feels like you're like always trying to fill the space and, make sure that other person is cared for. It's almost like over the top that doesn't feel like two people getting to know each other. Like I know Yue, like we did that dating experiment with you and like the feedback was like, I'm here to meet you and get to know you, not be entertained by you. And I think entertained can mean a lot of different things, but I've definitely been there before where I'm like, this feels so uncomfortable to like let this, dead air happen. And then looking back on it, I'm like, maybe it would have been okay to just let it be a little more dead air because either the other person would have picked it up or you would have both been like, okay, we really just don't have a natural conversation here. Maybe this isn't the right fit.
Something I never thought about while dating, now I think about now that I'm not dating, is whatever you're putting out there, the other person's probably trying to match it.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to fill all the silences, they probably feel the pressure to fill the silence. And then you just keep feeding into each other's pressure of trying to fill the silence. What if you just did something more authentic to give the other person permission to be authentically who they are too?
Yeah.
And I had this conversation with my friend who is currently dating and in the thick of dating. And she said, I am so tired of having the exact same conversation on these first dates. I'm so tired of talking about my job. I'm so tired of talking about their job and acting like I'm interested. And I was like, oh, why do you have to talk about any of that at all?
Right.
Like
you don't have
nobody's
to.
Forcing you.
Right.
But she felt the emotional labor of having to be the listener and to be interested in people's lives when she didn't care to. It felt like it was Groundhog's Day over and over again. So I think this is an example of where that emotional labor is unnecessary. We don't need to put that on ourselves.
So, I mean, correct me if you have felt this way, but I feel like with friends, I never feel this that often.
No.
Like, why is there such a difference? Is it that the expectation of dating and what you're supposed to do and the pressure that dating brings, is that all it really is that makes us feel like we need to take on this load?
I think it's fear. I don't
Yeah.
fear my friends are going to abandon me, but I do fear on a first date that if I don't make a good enough impression that I could be abandoned, that this person could reject me and not choose me. But in your heart, your friends always choose you no matter what.
But maybe that's the takeaway here is like
the shift.
Who cares if they
Yeah.
if you're like struggling to make conversation with this person? Like, can you really imagine a lifetime with them? Of course, yeah. I'm like ignoring first date jitters and all of that. I mean, like the conversations where it's like pulling teeth. And I do also think we hear a lot from people of like, I was the one talking the whole time.
Mhm.
They didn't say anything. And I'm wondering too, like, if you give that breathing room a little, would that actually, one, lighten your load that you're like, I don't need to think of all these conversation topics and bring all these questions to the date. Like, how exhausting is that? And then build up that resentment too that they're not asking you anything.
And then you're also not present because you're just thinking about what you're going to say next.
Yes.
Again, going back to that emotional labor that's unnecessary. You don't need to be thinking about what you're talking about next.
Another one that comes up is planning and remembering. And I think this one might be a little more important than you might not be able to forget this one. But organizing date nights, suggesting new activities, remembering anniversaries, anticipating what the other person would enjoy. I think if both people are doing this, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like harmony. But if you're the only one doing it, then it feels like you're carrying the glue to this relationship. And actually, as I'm saying this, I take it back. Maybe this is also one you can let go. If you're the only one planning anything, then this is not the right relationship or dating person for you.
This is where I take note from all my polyamorous friends who are balancing multiple relationships in their Google Calendar. They sit down with their partners every month and map out all the important dates for that month.
Yeah.
What is important to you and to me? Maybe in one of the relationships, anniversaries doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
They don't need to keep note of that. So if you're the one tracking it and you're like, I'm so exhausted from tracking this, maybe it doesn't matter. But then you can talk about the dates that truly matter. Like I had a friend who said they celebrate their first date anniversary. That was more important to her. So then both of them can track that instead of their actual like wedding anniversary. Again, I think this comes down to communication, but someone needs to lead this discussion.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like there was this shift and it's funny because I went to this dinner one. You went there also, Yue. It was that Korean pop-up that was in San Francisco at that sushi restaurant we went to.
Oh, yeah.
Remember this? You went like the night before or something. Anyways, we went and it was like this big table around the chef's counter and they had place cards with all the reservations. Every single reservation there was in the woman's name and it was all hetero couples. And I was like, this is hilarious to me because at the beginning, there's like this song and dance that like the guy sets everything up. And this is all of this is like not healthy and bullshit when you think about it. I'm just saying what tends to happen. And at the beginning, it's like the guy is the expectation, like, I don't want to make the date. I want to like lean back and all this stuff. And then somewhere, probably between 6 months to 1 year, once you've defined the relationship, you're comfortable, all of a sudden, the woman is doing all of it. And again, like for me, I don't care about doing reservations. It's funny because I'm thinking about my situation is my partner does all of our like anniversary reservations. Like he'll wait up to like midnight to get the reservation at like the restaurant we want to go to. But like on a weekend, like a normal weekend, I'm the one booking most of it. And it, for the most part, doesn't bother me because I'm like, it's easy for me to like go on Open Table and book something. But I feel like, yes, it would bother me if I was doing that plus 30 other things and not getting anything back.
Yes.
So maybe that's, again, finding the roles of what is natural for certain people. But I did find it very interesting that that was the case.
And it's leading by what your interests are. Most of my girlfriends are interested in new restaurants and pop-ups and trying different kinds of food. And they are the ones reading these lists and they're marking them on their maps. That's what I do. I'm always marking them on my Google Maps and then booking as soon as I can. But my current partner, like, he doesn't really care. He likes good food, but he's not like tracking the infatuation list and being like, what are the new restaurants opening in LA this week?
This
he doesn't
one
care.
girl at the restaurant was like, I study talk every night for 30 minutes. And I was like, whoa, next level. She had some good recs though, I'll tell you that.
See, but then that's what you're leading with, that interest.
Yeah.
But if she was resentfully doing it, like, oh, we have to eat anyway, and I have to find something for us to eat, that's different.
And also for my example, my partner books all the concerts because he is on top of that. So I think, again, it doesn't need to be like this, like it's a visible load, right? So like it could feel like sometimes you're doing it all, but it is kind of that step back and be like, okay, well, I'm doing restaurants, he's doing concerts. Actually, that kind of evens itself out. But again, if one person is doing everything, then it's not evened out.
Yeah, it's definitely not. And then you can also do this. Like if your partner has less interest in something, but you don't want to do as much effort into it, like booking restaurants, I just tell my partner, I'm like, surprise me with a restaurant once a month.
Yeah.
You don't need to do much research. Like, let's just go to a new restaurant. Maybe it's a friend's recommendation. Just surprise me with a restaurant.
Right. Okay, another big one is unequal emotional support. So we're going up a notch at each one of these. And this is when one person becomes the therapist, always listening to the other person, soothing or problem solving for the other, but then their struggles don't get the same care in return. This one to me is like, I don't know. This one to me is a deal breaker, personally. I feel like I could not be with someone that it felt like one way all the time.
I want to understand why it is so one-sided. And in early dating, I see this coming up a lot because one person could just be holding back from being vulnerable, right? They could just be like, I don't want to let people in that much. That's how I was. But deep into a relationship, a few years in, and if you're still experiencing this, it is worth getting some couples counseling in between you two, or also just understanding, like, why is this happening?
Yeah. I mean, I think the flip side, I'm just thinking about it, it's because it's the person that's not like being the support system. So one could be that they just don't have the capacity. The other side too is maybe one partner is kind of, I don't know, having more stuff that they're like going through or dwelling on. So maybe what is a better way to think about this too is it's not going to always be 50-50 all the time. But if you feel like you are constantly there for your partner and they're not in response, then that's something that like needs to be dived into more.
Yeah. And if your cup is not full, it's hard to give a little bit to your partner too. So I think about this idea of like your reserve energy. Maybe your partner's not able to give you anything is because they have no reserve energy left after what they're going through. So it's nice to understand what that is.
Another area that just calling out, we kind of talked about this a bit of like dating dynamics in the early stages. Women actually report doing a lot of emotional labor that doesn't even get shown to their partner, the person they're dating, like picking a safe spot, texting their friends to make sure that they get home okay, or all the stuff that has to do with safety. There's a lot of labor around that I think men just don't really understand because it's like moving through the world differently. And then just like keeping the convos going, like all the stuff we were talking about earlier, like keeping things moving, and how do we like orchestrate this relationship? That's both parties.
Something that never gets talked about is the emotional labor that I felt looking in the mirror for that last look check before going out on a date. And the kind of the inner dialogue that could happen.
Yeah.
Like some days when you're down, you're just like, damn, just like, I look like shit. and I'm about to go on this date. That's emotional labor because then you have to regulate and be like, no, you got this. Just be confident. There's so much, like women have so much inner dialogue that is just self-criticism. So we have to deal with that too, man. You're
Yes,
welcome.
I think that stuff no one sees, right? And I
No.
also want to say, though, I don't want to discount, like, I know men have insecurities as well. So I think a lot of
Sure.
people go through that. But yes, I could not agree more. So how does imbalance look? Like, how do you notice when it feels like, I mean, there's the obvious, right? Of like, you're doing all the work and you're the one that's constantly being their therapist. But like, what are some other signs? Like, I think when I'm thinking about dating, it was always me feeling like I was initiating, like texting,
Mm.
not even just plans. Like, I think sometimes there were people that I dated that, like, looking back, I'm like, I feel like if I didn't reach out, like, would I have heard from them for a while?
Mm.
And maybe I would have. Maybe that was self-induced, that I was kind of trying to control the situation so much that I like needed it to be like, I must talk to them every day. And if I don't, then something's wrong. So I will initiate it.
So maybe that's the sign is when you feel like you have to be in control
Yeah.
because you feel a little out of control. And maybe another sign is when you feel like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop
Hmm.
because you feel like, oh, I'm putting in all this effort to create this harmony and make sure everything's going well, but something might fall, I might have dropped the ball on something or I
Yeah.
might disappoint them on something. Like you're walking on eggshells. That's probably when you're doing a lot of the emotional labor.
I'm thinking back to like my on again, off again relationship. And I feel like I had a lot of resentment built because like I felt like I was doing like I was like always concerned about his well being. And
Uh,
like the reverse wasn't
yeah.
happening as much. And it was like
Uh-huh.
almost like I took on like a caretaker role over an equal. And that's like also not fair to the person you're with either. Like that
It's
probably
not.
isn't a good dynamic in general. But I think about it too. And like there were a lot of these moments, and not just in this relationship, but I see this in other times too, where like one person says something, but they don't actually follow up. So like,
Mhm.
like I want to like be there with for you when you're going through something, but then they're not there. They're not the one like
Mhm.
listening. So I think that to me, it's like easy to say stuff, but harder to do like the actions.
Yeah, I feel that. And also when you feel like one person is the problem more than the other,
Hmm.
like in my previous relationship, even in couples counseling, it was always called out that he had the childhood trauma. He had the
Yeah.
issues with the
Yeah.
divorce. And then it became about me and the counselor help emotionally supporting him through all of that. And me carrying that emotional load when we get off the call. And then him feeling like he was the helpless one.
Broken.
So
Yeah.
you even mentioned it's not fair for either party because he didn't ask for me to carry that emotional load. But if he's labeled as the one that needs it, then nobody benefits.
Yeah. It's tough too because there's also like the pain that like in that situation, in my situation too, it's like there's this pain that we're carrying that no one's
Oh, yeah.
acknowledging at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who's supporting us through that?
Right. You're just like fixing this person. But again, maybe that's just the sign in general that like this isn't it's not the
Yeah.
right relationship. If it's not to say like you have to be with someone that has no issues, but it's their responsibility to fix their own issues, not yours.
Yes. What I've learned from that relationship is that all of this goes in seasons. And I think in any relationship, sometimes one person does need more emotional support than the other. But you always call it a season. You
Hmm.
say, well, in this season, our relationship, I'm here for you, and we're going to devote all of our time and energy to you. But that comes with a time cap because there's no way you can keep labeling someone as the problem, as the broken one.
I think just sharing the load and sharing the labor. I love the example that you gave about your mom and dad because I feel
Yeah.
like it's like a good way to look at labor because it's like actual physical labor, but that could
Uh-huh.
translate to more. And the load is like the anticipation and like the like planning and all the stuff that's like the responsibility behind it. So I think either sharing the load, like kind of having different things and needs and responsibilities that you both take on, or doing it the way that like your parents did, in a way of like, okay, well, I did the upfront work and you're doing more of this now, and acknowledging both, not just being like, oh, I'm the one that did it all, you know?
Right. But here's the thing, seeing this in many relationships, so many people, when they start doing the anticipatory work up front, they get so frustrated that they go, why don't I just do the thing?
Yeah.
Like, why am I planning and making this list? I'll just do the thing. Like, who cares? I'm going to bypass the emotional labor and just go into the physical labor. I see this with my girlfriends with kids. They'll go on vacation, make a list of things for their husband to do for the kid. And then in the middle of making the list, they go, oh, you know what? I'll just do this. I'll just pack this. I'll just make this. I'll just meal plan. It's just so much work to even just having me make this list and putting it down on paper.
I could see that.
What do you do then? Like, as a partner who's doing it all.
I mean, I think
because then you do end up doing everything.
You also have to have faith in your partner by taking control of every last thing. You're almost like setting that dynamic up that you can't ever go away without giving detailed instructions.
Yeah.
And I think it's that control again, is like maybe they do it a different way or they do it wrong in your eyes, but doesn't mean that it is wrong.
Yes, you're right. And then my dad, I'm going to bring it back to my parents again. Whenever my mom's out of the house, my dad will get mad about something because he can't find whatever it is he's trying to find. It's always like, where'd you put the scissors? Or where'd you put the plates? And she's like, it's your house too. Right. Why don't you go look? And so the emotional labor is actually him calling her to have her be his Chat GPT, because she has to answer when he can just go flip through the cupboards of his own house.
Right. Oh my God, so many examples. I want to actually go into some early dating examples and what you can do instead. But before we do, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. Cooler days call for layers that last, and Quince is my go-to for quality essentials that feel cozy, look refined, and won't blow your budget. Think a Mongolian cashmere sweater for only $50, premium denim that fits like a dream, and luxe outerwear you'll wear year after year. I'm eyeing their wool coats. They look designer level but cost a fraction of the price, and the quality just as good, if not better, because Quince partners directly with top-tier ethical factories and cuts out the middleman. I recently went on quite the Quince haul, getting a tan cashmere sweater and silk skirt I plan on wearing to Thanksgiving. Find your fall staples at Quince. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/dateable to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable. You guys know I'm all about clean eating, but I just learned about the hidden microplastics in my home. That's why I've made the switch to Blue Land across all the cleaning products around my house. Their products meet the highest standard of clean. They're effective, yet gentle on my family and the planet. Blue Land was also named an EPA Safer Choice Partner of the Year. From cleaning sprays and toilet bowl cleaner to dishwasher and laundry detergent tablets, Blue Land's formulas are 100% microplastic free, made with certified clean ingredients free from chlorine, bleach, and harsh chemicals that are safe to use around my household. I love not having to choose between the safe option and what actually gets my house clean. The dishwasher and laundry tablets are now staples in our home. Blue Land has a special offer for our listeners. Right now, get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/dateable. You won't want to miss this. blueland.com/dateable for 15% off. That's blueland.com/dateable to get 15% off. Have you ever rooted for a central couple in a horror movie? Then you are going to love House of Rain by New York Times bestselling TikTok sensation Harley LaRue. Happy endings and horror can mix after all. It's a gothic sapphic romance meets supernatural suspense, equal parts sinfully spicy and bone chilly. Salem was supposed to be on her honeymoon. Instead, she's trapped at Belfour Manor with Rain, a woman hiding secrets as dark as the house itself. This book gets 4 out of 5 peppers for bringing the heat. If you're a fan of The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager or Verity by Colleen Hoover, this must-read thriller is for you. The book just sucks you in. I swear, I even caught myself looking behind my shoulder once or twice because Harley LaRue builds this tension that just lingers. You can find House of Rain by Harley LaRue wherever books are sold in print and in ebook. The gorgeous deluxe hardcover first printing is only available for a limited time, so grab yours before they are gone. Okay, so texting and communication. We talked about this a little bit. If you're the one that's always the one starting convos, asking the follow-up questions, keeping the energy alive, what can you do instead? I think just pausing, like I was saying, the example of like, I feel like I'm always the one initiating. And if I don't, are they actually going to even reach out? First of all, maybe they will because you're giving the space. And if they don't, then you have the opportunity to see that this is an uneven distribution. I think for me, I was so caught up in making it work that I didn't want to see that. Like I didn't want it to shed light like, oh, I'm the only one doing it. So instead, even though I was the only one doing it, even though I was putting all this load and labor on myself, I was able to be like, well, we are in contact every day. This is a great relationship.
Yeah. You have to set the boundaries of what it is you're willing to do to communicate. And maybe the boundary is I'm going to text one more time.
Yep.
And that is it. And whatever comes out of it, I'm going to accept that as the truth.
Right.
And you're right. Sometimes we don't do that because we don't want to know the truth.
We don't. Another one, planning dates. If you're always the one to come up with all the ideas, the logistics, where should we go? What should we do? What time works? Should we get tickets? Should I book them like 8 months in advance? I think it's like you can alternate this with your partner. I feel like there was a point in my relationship, probably in that 6 months to a year mark, where I did feel like I was like the one always planning. And I was like, let's do this thing that we both like surprise each other on a date and alternate. Yeah. And that kind of shook up the dynamic a bit. And then it reminded my partner of like, oh, one, I do like doing this. Two, I wasn't the only one doing it. So it freed up the space to do it because sometimes people are like, oh, they like doing it or they want to be doing it. And they don't like my ideas. Like there's many ways our like brains can go. So I think just having that like ability to step back and be like, okay, let's actually even this out a little.
Question for you and everybody listening. In early dating, in those first or second dates, I used to find it really attractive if someone can just plan the date, tell me when to show up, and tell me what the vibe is going to be. But then I thought about, does that set the tone for the relationship where it is sort of one-sided? Is it better in early dating where you're both collaborating on those dates? And so maybe it's like, oh, I found this great restaurant. What do you want to do after? And then you plan the second half of the date.
So a couple things comes to mind. I had this combo with my partner because I was like, you were so good at setting the dates at the beginning. It's not like you can't do it. And he's like, well, I had to do it then. And I'm like, okay, now. Sometimes there's this mentality of like, I did it then, but I don't necessarily need to now. And so I think it doesn't necessarily set the tone that it will forever be this way. Like I was mentioning with the example of all the women that booked. And I think if we were to take that exact dinner and do it as like the first date, it probably would be the opposite. So I do think this shift happens naturally a little. I've also found too, I used to be very, very attracted to that. And then sometimes it's coming from, this is just how you date. This is what I'm supposed to do. Other times it's coming from, I need to be the one in control and dictate. Like I remember this one guy, I thought it was so like hot that he did this. And then when I had an idea. It just kind of was like, no, I
Right.
can't do
Yep.
that. I don't have time. And it was like basically very clear that like all his planning was like so he could work around his own schedule.
Right. Yes. So then it brings me back to the question. Do you think it's better for people to collaborate on those first couple of dates?
I do. I think it sets the tone of having like an equal or more equal like say and plan in them.
Yeah. Good. And I think so too, because it also removes that feeling of like, oh, this is what you do in early dating. Like I should do this. Like every relationship I've been in, the first couple dates were so well planned out, like you were saying.
And then you like see the drop and everyone's like, what happened? And they're like, I just got comfortable. Nothing, everything's good.
I'm safe now. Yeah, you're not going anywhere.
Right. But to like you're like, oh my God, they don't like me anymore. This is over.
Yes.
It's just so much unnecessary drama and stress in something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's an interesting point of the collaboration. I've really liked to when I've gone on dates and like maybe I'm the one that's suggested something like a park date and then they're like, well, I'll bring this to it. So it feels more like collaborative.
Yeah. What about this idea of remembering and anticipating? I experience this in my current relationship where if I know he has a big meeting the next day, the night before, I'm like, oh, make sure you go to bed early. Make sure that we have a nice, nutritious meal together. Like, make sure you meditate. I'm like laying out his whole plan for the night. I don't need to be doing that, but I don't know. I feel like I should.
I feel like that's unnecessary because they've survived without us for years. And at the end of the day, like if they are tired for their meeting, that's how they'll learn next time. So I do think that's like an overly like mothering approach. It's not like it's bad. It's coming from a good place, but is it necessary? Probably not.
See, my train of thought is I am actually helping myself. Because if he has a good meeting the next day, he's going to be in a good mood. And when I see him, we're going to have fun. Same with, I'll give you this example for your wedding, actually. So he has not had a sip of alcohol in almost a year.
Yeah.
And he said, well, if we're going to be in wine country, we're going to a wedding, I'm going to have one glass of wine. So he had a glass of wine at your wedding. And I was like, just so you know, you haven't had alcohol in almost a year.
Might hit you. Yeah.
It might hit you and your body may not love it. And he's like, oh, I think I'll be fine. I mean, I drank for however many years. I think I'll be fine. The next day he was a wreck.
Of course.
I mean, from one glass of wine, he had a headache. He was a little hungover. And he's like, oh yeah, it's just like not sitting well in my stomach. I'm like, I told you that, but you know, it's emotional labor, but I guess the argument is just let it go, like let him learn his own lesson.
I think so. It has to be, right? It's like when you tell
but why do I have to suffer?
I know, but you kind of have to like disconnect. You're like, look,
I know.
Here's some
That's
Advil.
labor in itself.
Here's some Advil. I'm done. No, just kidding.
That's the labor too.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think though it's like the managing the mood though is like you can only manage so much. Like that isn't our responsibility to manage someone's mood and emotions. And if it turns out someone's like mood swings or emotions are too much for us, then we need to like know that information and take action accordingly. Or like I said, let them do them. You know, it's not like, like I feel like my partner does this for me all the time. He's like, you're being a lot.
You do you.
Kind of. It's like, it's not like he's not there for me, but like some things that he's like, this isn't a big deal. Like if I'm like, I don't know, like sometimes like I can't connect my phone or something. I like kind of freak out. And it's like, he's like, just restart it. Like you'll be fine. But he kind of like lets me do my thing instead of trying to manage it. I think at the beginning you tried to manage it and then quickly realized like this isn't worth my time and energy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to learn from him. He's like, I'm here, but you can also take care of this yourself and you'll figure it out. And I'm going to leave you alone.
We'll always remember this, and it like sounds bad, but it's not if you know these people. Like one of my friends from college, she just would always cry, like get drunk, cry. Like, and it wasn't about anything important. And like her old boyfriend would always be like soothing her and like, you know, like kind of visual. You would see they would get into fights. Like he would be annoyed by her with it. And then her now husband, like we were at this baseball game once and something happened. I forget what happened. It was like I think it was like we like had someone's birthday announcement on the Jumbotron and she went to the bathroom with the birthday girl and like they missed it. And it was like, we're all like, it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's not a big deal. And she just like lost it. And he was just sitting there watching baseball, like nothing was happening next to him. And I like, you could be like, oh, that's insensitive. But I think it's not because like, it wasn't like a big deal and like no one was upset. Like if people were like upset with her, like there was all this stuff happening, then like he probably would have been like, it's okay, like step in. But like he was like, this isn't an issue, you know, like I'm not going to let it ruin my game and like watch this.
But that probably took a while for them to arrive at that. He probably freaked him the fuck out in the beginning.
I mean, I feel like I cry a lot anyways.
You do, but not to that extent. I'm actually surprised there's someone who cries more than you.
Sorry, we're friends. I'm just kidding. But
we just cry together.
I'm like, I'll cry with you. Don't worry. So
you're like, what are we crying about?
You just need to find the person on your wavelength. It doesn't need to be your partner.
That's true.
So yeah, I mean, I think like sometimes it's not on us to do this stuff.
It's not. Most of it. Because then you have to recognize, is this your thing? Okay, this is your thing. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
This is your thing.
Yeah. So we want to find a partner, though, that beats us. I think we're joking about like someone that's like, I'm just going to ignore that. But it's like you want a partner that knows how to let you regulate, but also be there when you need them too. So I think like the red flag to me is when they seem like happy that you're doing everything and like don't reciprocate. They're like, cool, free ride. Awesome. Maybe a yellow flag is like they're a little clumsy, like they forget or they're distracted, but like they're open to feedback. And then the green flag is like they naturally take that initiative and they check in, they plan, they soothe without being asked. They do all the things.
Yeah. And the red flag is you want to run away from that. And you'll know that right away because you'll feel abandoned.
Totally.
I've definitely felt emotionally abandoned in a relationship. It's not a good feeling. It's very lonely.
I mean, I think just some green flags. We've talked a lot about red flags, but like when you're looking for a partner, if in communication, they initiate conversations frequently. They don't just respond. They ask thoughtful follow-up questions. You're not the only one holding down the convo. And they remember things you've shared. Also, they kind of take their part in keeping the convo moving. A lot of times in, something that's just natural, it's not even something you have to think about, but both partners are just showing up. Therefore, you don't have to think about it.
Yes, right. And also, if you want your partner to remember something, tell them.
Yeah.
Because you think it's important to remember, they may not think so. So it's good to communicate that, it's important to remember what I'm about to say. So here I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
Another green flag is just giving you emotional support. If you're feeling distressed in some way, your partner's there to listen. They validate. They ask you what you need instead of jumping in and just telling you what you need. And then they check in, follow up on it.
Yeah, I think sometimes, actually, I was, upset about something last night and just getting a text today, following up about it. It's, really
That's
nice. That just, and it's, kind of, it's not like a fight we had or anything. It's just, an external thing. And it was just, a visible stress. And it was, how are you doing? And just, something that simple can make all the difference because it shows that someone's remembering, that they care about you, that they're not necessarily taking on your stress, but they're, being supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And then in planning and logistics, they suggest dates. They also take the lead. They remember those birthdays, anniversaries, and milestones. I mean, I had a boyfriend, I won't name who, that always forgot my birthday. And it was pretty brutal. And like, that's when resentment builds and you're like, wow, am I just not important to this person? Granted, yes, better communicator myself could have been like, hey, this is a problem. Birthdays are important, but it's kind of shitty. And like,
Yeah, it's kind of a given.
Yeah. And like seeing that, you're like, okay, at least I have the info I need. And, then when I had this partner that would like go all out for my birthday, it's like so much like, you're like, oh, I feel seen.
Yeah. And for those of you who have a hard time remembering anniversaries, just get married on a date that you can remember.
How do you forget your anniversary? I just like don't understand.
Your Labor Day weekend, I don't know. People do all the time. Just like, just get married on a day like 8828. I don't know. Just remember, just actually pick a date that you can remember.
I'm sorry. There's no excuse for this. I'm terrible with dates and numbers. Like, I can't remember that to save my life. I remember the day my partner and I went on our first date. And if you don't put in your effing calendar, like nowadays, there's really no excuse. Even birthdays, I have like it all in calendar now. Like, there's no excuse.
Yeah. If it's important to you, you'll find a way to keep track of it.
Right. It's an excuse if you don't. Yeah. And then, in conflict and tension, I think this is really when you start to see if people can carry the load with you. And, I think just being there, one, to work it out. I think this to me was a game changer of like, if there's conflict, they're not just going to run away and be done, that they try to repair the tension. And you don't have to be the peacemaker. Like, I've seen other friends of mine be in relationships where they're always the peacemaker. And to me, I'm like, that feels so exhausting.
Yep. I've witnessed relationship dynamics where one person is the landfill and the other person just dumps all this emotional baggage into the landfill. And then they go, I feel so much better now. And the partner's landfill just keeps building and building, and they don't dump any of that back. And I'm like, how does this work? And I think sometimes when we tell our partners about a stressful day, we think we're being vulnerable, we think we're sharing, but also know you're dumping emotions onto your partner. So you got to take some of it back too. Like, you got to own some of it and you got to redistribute some of it. It's not fair to give it all to your partner.
Yeah. So I guess in short, when you're dating someone new, pay attention early, see if they do the reciprocity, and notice their initiative. Be clear on your needs and see their flexibility too. I think there's actually some really fun questions you can ask to like get a feel about their habits, their life, and the way they are in relationships. Like some of these that we found of, just asking how they think about others. Like, what's something you usually do to cheer a friend up who's having a bad day? You can learn so much about someone. And are they like, I don't do anything? Or they're like, I do this, And then who in your life do you usually turn to when you need to vent? And what do you do for people's birthdays? Or, those are just, we'll add a whole list of these to Instagram because there's just so many good questions that you can pull from to really get a feel.
And try to answer them yourself too.
Yes.
It's good to understand yourself too.
Well, we might have to do a part 2 of this episode because I feel like there's so much to unpack here. And then like, if you're with someone, again, it doesn't mean that it's we need to throw this whole relationship out. It's over if they're not showing some of these signs. It's how do we work together and build awareness and make these little shifts?
Yeah. And let's not succumb to all the research that supports women put out the most emotional labor in relationships. We don't need to. I think we can change that narrative and not feed into it. And there's so much more we can do as women to just say, let's redistribute.
Yep.
It's okay to do so.
And for the men listening, hopefully this gave some line of sight. And again, also, you can be a man and doing this emotional labor. We're not saying you aren't either.
Yeah, you are. You definitely are. But you can only see so far. That's the problem. Like, women just see 5 years ahead.
Yeah, it's also really easy to see what we're doing as individuals and not always what our partner is doing. I even feel like this with chores and stuff too. So it's a good reminder.
It's very true. It is a good reminder.
Well, I'm really glad we got to unpack all of this. Reminder, go pick up How to Be Dateable and continue to tune in with us.
All right. And leave us a rating and review in Apple Podcasts. And if you leave a rating and review with 5 stars and tell us about what is the emotional labor you witness in your own relationships, then we will give you a shout out in the next episode.
Yep. And we will be putting a poll up on Spotify as well. So make sure to check in there and leave us a rating.
Wrapping up this episode.
Stay dateable.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.